Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, an insight. Episode 224. My humble prostrations at the lotus feet of our Sadguru Sai. By the divine grace of Sai, an attempt has been made to translate the gist of the divine discourse of Sri Ramanathan brother telecasted in Sai TV. This is purely done to share the glory of Sai and his divine teachings with more insight to the aspirants. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dear devotees, we have been listening to the incredible miracles of Sri Sai Maharaj experienced by Raghuveer Bhaskar Purandare and Mrs. Purandare. In this connection, we heeded that Mrs. Purandare was terribly ill owing to post-delivery convulsions. The relatives and friends of Purandare insisted that he admit his wife in the hospital, whereas Purandare had unswerving faith upon Sri Sai Maharaj and said her survival depends on the will of Sri Sai Maharaj. Even if she remains at home, she might recover by the grace of Sri Sai Baba without any medical aid. On the contrary, even after being admitted to the hospital, despite receiving all the treatments, she might even die. Whereas his Guru Bandhus Hemat Pant and Dikshit Ji advised him to admit her in the hospital. This statement made him reanalyze his decision and was lying on the easy chair if he had to admit his wife in the hospital or not. At this juncture, he had a miraculous experience. He saw Sri Sai Maharaj walking very fast towards him, holding his satka and his joli bag hanging on his shoulders. It appeared as if Sri Sai Maharaj was about to hit him. Purandare usually would flee away from Sri Sai Maharaj, but this time he remained there, and as always, Sri Sai Baba scolded him and walked into the room Mrs. Purandare was lying down. She was almost in deathbed. Her pulse was very low, and Sri Sai Maharaj took the woody and smeared on her forehead with great force. The next moment she screamed out, saying, "Oh, I am unable to bear the heat of the woody. It's extremely hot." Devotees, this is because the woody is directly taken by Sri Sai Maharaj instantly from the burning duni at Shirdi and smeared on the forehead of Mrs. Purandare, who was having convulsions and chills. Until that moment, Purandare wasn't sure if all that is happening is a vision or real. But now, hearing the screams of his wife, he was certain that it was not a hallucination. Because Purandare is residing at Bandra, and he cannot even dream of having Sri Sai Maharaj come to his home from Shirdi all the way to Bandra. Though the behavior of Sri Sai Maharaj was so realistic, he was unable to believe that Sri Sai Maharaj was with him at his Bandra home. But the shrieks of his wife made him realize that the Supreme Lord had come for the sake of his devotee, leaving his holy abode. Until his wife yelled out, Purandare was in the easy chair. So he sees Sri Sai Maharaj in an angry mood, and both walking to his wife's room is all vision. But smearing of the holy ashes by Sri Sai Baba and his wife's reaction to the hot woody is real. Mrs. Purandare saw Sri Sai Maharaj standing beside her cot. Wow! Devotees, what an astounding Leela this could be. How compassionate our Sri Sai Maharaj must be to enact this divine play for Purandare. Mrs. Purandare had chills until Sri Sai Maharaj smeared the hot woody on her forehead. Now she began to experience a sort of heat permeating her body, and gradually the temperature began to rise. Thus, Sri Sai Maharaj revived her life. Mrs. Purandare told her husband, "We don't have to go to the hospital for treatment. Look, Sri Sai Maharaj is standing here." Listeners, how can this be an illusion? The experience was so real, the outcome was also obvious, and there is evidence for the coming of Sri Sai Maharaj to Purandare's home. By the mercy of Sri Sai Baba, Mrs. Purandare's death was averted and she began to recover after this wonderful darshan of Sri Sai Maharaj. Next morning, as planned, Kaka Sahib Dikshit and Hemant Pant came to Purandare's home to assist in admitting Mrs. Purandare to the hospital. Purandare's home was named Sainath Ashram. It is situated at 59B Berry Street, Bandra. As recorded by Pujya Sri Narasimha Swamiji, Purandare narrated the incredible Leela of Sri Sai Baba healing his wife and said there is no reason to admit her in the hospital as Sri Sai Maharaj has treated her ailment with the holy Udi. Hemant Pantji also voiced out his opinion that to avoid any further risks, it's better to take Mrs. Purandare to the hospital for consultation. Whereas Purandare sternly disregarded this advice, and Dikshitji observed the depth of Purandare's devotion towards Sri Sai Maharaj and convinced Hemant Pantji to not force him anymore in this matter. And all the three agreed that when Sri Sai Maharaj blessed Mrs. Purandare in a special way and healed her health, then there is no need to approach a doctor again. But devotees might wonder why Sri Sai Maharaj always got furious with Purandare, though he was aware of the loving devotion and staunch faith that Purandare had upon him. For instance, once to Kaka Sahib Dikshit, Sri Sai Maharaj said, "What is that Purandare thinking of himself? Get me the chisel. His eyes are filled with negativity. Let me pluck his eyes and throw them away." These utterings of Sri Sai Maharaj have a subtle meaning. Purandare was gradually withdrawing himself from the worldly desires. This we can understand from his wife's statement to Sri Sai Maharaj at the time of giving the sacred coins as dakshana that were used in their puja. To recall, at the time of receiving this dakshana, Sri Sai Maharaj told her that her husband will thrash her for this act, whereas she responded saying that he would not mind giving these coins to anyone. Then why would he be upset with her for giving as dakshana to their supreme God? Instead, he will be delighted that she did such an act. This is because Purandare began to develop detachment towards all these materialistic objects. Hence, he would not mind these matters. So, in the above statement, when Sri Sai Maharaj utters that he will use a chisel to pluck Purandare's eyes, that indicates Sri Sai Maharaj's promise to make Purandare completely renounce worldly affairs. When a person uses his naked eye to see things, then he develops desire towards it. If those eyes are plucked out, then the sense to see the objects itself will not raise. Then where is the question of developing a desire for those things? So, the spells of Sri Sai Baba were on the sense of attachment and not on Purandare. In another instance, Sri Sai Maharaj picked up a red brick to hit Purandare. He held his neck and said, "You are troubling me so much. I am going to kill you. Now go away and go out of my sight." This was Sri Sai Maharaj's approach towards Purandare. So, once Fakir Baba asked Sri Sai Maharaj, "Baba, this Purandare is always engaged in doing some or the other work for you. whereas you always rebuke him. Devotees, though outwardly Sri Sai Maharaj's assertions on Purandare might sound like curses and criticism, they were indeed blessings and an aid to his spiritual upliftment, which cannot be comprehended by simple souls like us. Purandare was blessed with many divine experiences and was certain that they were all bestowed by Sri Sai Maharaj. They both were closely associated with each other, but outwardly it appeared as though they never get along. During 1916 Christmas and New Year holidays, Purandare's family desired to go to Shirdi for Sri Sai Baba's darshan. But then, in the last moment, they changed their mind to spend the holidays at Mrs. Purandare's parents' home. Purandare, his wife, and their 7-month child, along with Purandare's mother, came to the railway station, purchased their tickets, and were waiting to board the train. At that juncture, suddenly Purandare became very restless, and there was a strong desire in his mind to go to Shirdi. The next moment, he gave the tickets to his mother and told her to take his wife and child to his father-in-law's home, and he decided to go to Shirdi. Purandare's mother tried her best to convince him to accompany them, at least until they reached Mrs. Purandare's hometown, whereas Purandare was very stern in his decision. In fact, he felt his thoughts were beyond his control. This strong pull to Shirdi was startling and incomprehensible for him. Immediately he proceeded to Shirdi. At Kopargaon, he came to know that Radhakrishna Ayi was unwell, and to his astonishment, when he reached Shirdi, Sri Sai Maharaj was also not feeling well, looked very weak and was bedridden. Now he understood the reason why his mind was engulfed with the thought of going to Shirdi. This is purely a reflection of his boundless love for Sri Sai Maharaj and Radhakrishna Ai. This unbounded love gushed out of his heart and made him proceed to Shirdi, writes Pujya Sri Narasimha Swamiji in his book Devotees' Experiences. Sri Sai Maharaj had short of breath and difficulty in coughing. Seeing the plight of Sri Sai Maharaj, Purandare became much worried and began to shed tears. He said, "Oh Baba, do you need to endure all this?" Sri Sai Maharaj consoled him, saying, "Do not worry about me. I will recover soon. Allah has given me this for a reason." Then Purandare went to Radhakrishna Mai's home. She was afflicted with malaria and was bedridden. The health condition of Radhakrishna Mai added more sorrow to Purandare. He came to Sri Sai Maharaj weeping to say the health status of Radhakrishna Mai. Sri Sai Baba, who was unable to move and even struggling to cough, immediately decided to go on bhiksha rounds. So, 2 devotees supported him on either side, as he was extremely weak even to walk owing to his sickness. Sri Sai Baba, who was wobbling while he was on his begging rounds, told the devotees to take him to Radhakrishna Mai's home. With the help of the devotees, with great difficulty he reached her house. Just opposite the Chavadi is Abdul Baba's cottage. Next to the cottage, at present, we find shops, but those years there used to be mud houses in a row. Out of those, the first one belonged to Vaman Kondkar. Next to it was Mother Radhakrishna Mai's home. Sri Sai Baba reached this spot and instructed to get a ladder. A ladder was brought and kept leaning to the wall of Vaman Kondkar's home. Until then, Sri Sai Maharaj could barely walk and seemed very weak, but to the astonishment of all, in no time he climbed the ladder, reached the roof and walked across the roof of Vaman Kondkar's home and Radhakrishna Mai's home. After reaching the other end of Radhakrishna Mai's roof, Sri Sai Baba told the devotees to get the ladder to that corner, and the ladder was leaned to the walls of Radhakrishna Mai's home. Now, Sri Sai Maharaj climbed down the ladder from that point. As soon as he landed on the soil, again his body became weak and he felt sick. Devotees, this doesn't mean that Sri Sai Maharaj is deceiving his devotees by saying he is sick and weak. Sri Sai Maharaj is strictly adhering to the law of karma. Though he is not bound by it and can surpass it at his will, he will not do so. Instead, will endure whatever he has decided to suffer. He relieved himself from sickness by climbing on the ladder and walking over the roof of Sri Radhakrishna Mai to subside her malaria fever. As soon as he accomplished it, he again resumed to his previous state of illness. Radhakrishna Mai's malaria didn't abate with any medications. She was shivering due to high temperature, but after the above divine sport of Sri Sai Maharaj, her fever reduced. She began to sweat and felt rejuvenated. Very soon, she recovered completely. To execute this divine sport, Sri Sai Maharaj used the ladder brought by Vengu Kamblekar. Though this miracle is narrated in Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, the name of this devotee is not mentioned. This Vengu Kamblekar was given ₹2 by Sri Sai Baba for leaning the ladder once on Vaman Kondkar's home and then on Sri Radhakrishna Mai's house. The devotees that witnessed this incident felt that ₹2 was too high for this simple service, as it had a greater value those days. But Sri Sai Maharaj was of the firm conviction that none should avail anybody's service for free and every laborer must be given a fair amount for their service. Also, the most compassionate Sri Sai Maharaj conferred a subtle blessing to Vengu Kamblekar through this Leela. This devotee, though was married for many years, never had a progeny. The most merciful Sri Sai Baba gave him an opportunity to serve him and showered his grace by giving him 2 baby boys in the following years. Sri Sai Maharaj's miracles are unique and unfathomable. He knows what is best for his devotee and bestows his grace at the appropriate time. To conclude, Purandare came to Shiradi during the year 1917 with his child to receive the blessings of Sri Sai Maharaj. This child was born in the Moola star, hence the relatives and friends of Purandare advised him to perform Shanti Homams. Was Sri Sai in favor of that? What was the advice given to Purandare? Can be heeded in the coming episode. Bow to Sri Sai, peace be to all. Om Sai Ram.